Hi guys, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to two websites that I'm quite familiar with. Maybe there's something on there that would be interest to you, so I thought I'd give them a shout out anyway because I use them quite regularly. This one is the Glamorous Scorpions. It's very good for supplies, and one thing I do like about this website is that they list stuff by brands as well. So if you're a particular person like me who likes to buy a particular brand, for instance, I do like a lot of Versalaga and Vetafarm stuff. So all you have to do is select Vetafarm and Versalaga if you was looking for that, and you'd find all their brands down there. I mean, I don't think they have everything listed here, but they have most stuff. It's very well organised, so it's quite easy to navigate. If you're looking for medicines or minerals and vitamins or supplements of any kind, nesting material, nesting boxes, it's all categorised very easily. So if you're looking for something, you can find it quite quickly. It's a really nice little site. Their prices are reasonable. At the moment, I believe they only deliver to the USA. I suppose they may change that in the future. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, have a look on that if you get a chance. I mean, you're not forced to buy anything, obviously, but just have a quick look and see what you think. I quite like the site anyway, and yeah, I thought I'd give it a mention. And the next one I'd like to give a mention to is Dr. Ross Perry. This is the Gold Coast bird vet. He's a world-renowned avian vet. He's actually quite a nice gentleman, actually, and he knows what he's talking about. He has quite a lot of passion for birds. He does remind me of myself a little bit. He has written many books. I have bought some of his books. One of them in particular that appealed to me was the bird poop book. Quite cheap. You have an option if you want to have a hard copy sent to your door, or you can have the PDF format, which you can actually download there and then. I like to read the testimonials, and I do like to read some of the other articles that he's written. So this is a very interesting site. If you ever get a chance, pop over and have a look. I mean, if you're interested, it may not even just be finches. You may keep parrots or cockatiels and anything like that. But yeah, have a look anyway. You can see if there's anything of interest to you. So I thought I'd give these sites a quick little shout out, and yeah, see what you think anyway. Hiya folks, and welcome back to the Finch Keeper. This part is about stargazing versus twirling. This has been requested by a few people to do a video on this, because a lot of people don't really know the difference between twirling and stargazing and assume that they are both the same thing. They're not the same thing at all. I just thought, well, okay, I'll try and explain it the best I can. I have studied this quite in depth for quite a few years. I didn't really know much about it at first, I must admit. It took some time for me to figure out what was what and what I was dealing with, how to recognise the symptoms, and that is what I'm going to explain in this video. The symptoms of stargazing and the symptoms of twirling are completely different, although for an untrained eye they would never know the difference. So they would probably assume that most people just say, oh, they're twirling or they're just stargazing, and have absolutely no idea that they're two different things. I've got this cage. It's just a travel cage really, but I'm going to use this for this video, probably just to explain or just to use it as an example. This is not a sort of cage that I would keep a bird in for a prolonged period of time. It's just for travelling, or if I was going to a bird show or was going to buy some new birds, etc. So, but I will use this. What I want to do is explain in detail each one, what the difference is. Now, one is an illness, usually, and one isn't. It's nothing to do with an illness at all. Right, which one's which? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'll break this down into two, and I will do one first and then the second. The first one being stargazing. Stargazing is completely irrelevant to twirling, and that is because with stargazing there's no illness involved at all. 9 times out of 10, well, actually 10 times out of 10 is no illnesses at all. And the difference between stargazing and twirling visually is you may notice that you have a bird which is in your cage and its head is tilting backwards and forwards, right back sometimes to the point where they actually fall off the perch. And you'll notice that there's no other kind of abnormalities, and they usually go right to the top of the cage when they do it. This usually happens when the bird has been taken away from another environment. So you may have taken them out from a big cage and put them into a cage like this, and you will find that they don't like it, and their outward way of showing you that they are stressed is by standing on a perch, and they don't know what to do, so their head goes backwards and forwards, and usually they will end up falling off a perch backwards, and they will climb back up and do the same again. That's because they don't know what to do, where to go. Often another thing can be is where the perches are too high, or there's not enough perches in there. Another thing can be usually the cage is too small, or there's another bird in there that's bullying them, and again fewer perches. Now, when there is a lot of head tilting backwards and forwards, and you know that it's going to be stargazing, there's no way you could not really notice it. There's no way you could not. Trying to think of the word, but you would know when you see it. It's usually, not usually. It's always stress. That's a stress. That's their way of showing you that they're stressed out. Another thing is make sure there's some kind of green foliage in there where they can hide. This sort of cage is not ideal to keep a bird in for very long at all. Not a whole day or something like that. It's just literally, if you're going from A to B, bring them back, then put them into a very large cage, plenty of light all the way around. Not too many birds, because overcrowding will cause stargazing as well. If the bird is overcrowded, the cage is too small, lack of hiding places, if the cage is just too cramped and it's very used to being in a large aviary, and then they put them into a small cage, and that's when they will start doing it. The quickest, if you want to know the cure for that, you don't need any medicines at all, no treatments. I've heard people say, "Oh, give the bird this and give the bird that," and this, give them this medicine and that medicine. They don't need any medicines at all. Really, don't need none. Save your money and save your bird. If you want your birds to be healthy, you need to give them what they need, and that's space. That's why they've got wings, so that they can fly. And if they can't fly, I've seen cages like this, even smaller, just one perch. That's all they've got in there, and I don't understand what they're supposed to do with just one perch. That would drive me nuts. But I've always maintained, if you don't have the room to keep birds, don't force that bird to live in a small space, because for the mental health of that bird is not going to be very good at all. They need their space. If you can't afford to give them that space, don't keep them. Just go to a show and watch them, or to a friend's house who can afford to give them the space. Anyway, if you do have a bird that's twirling, and if you do have a cage that is small and that's all you've got, and the bird is twirling, I would advise trying to get a bigger cage as soon as possible, or just let the bird come out periodically to fly around the room, exercise its wings, and then if you leave the cage open, sometimes it will just go back in on its own where it knows its food and water is. Get them perches lower. You don't want them up here. They don't like having no room above their head. When they're in their cage, they like a lot of room between the top of their head and the top of the cage. Make sure that, again, there's plenty of foliage in there. You don't want to cover the whole thing, just a little space where they can go and hide away behind. Because I find that with my Gordians, near enough all of them, they will hide behind leaves, and at the end of the day, or when they just want to have a bit of sleep, there's a little darkened area. And if there's no little darkened places where they can get away, to get that quiet time, they do get a bit stressed, because we all like to hide away at some point or other, just to get away from it, to regenerate your batteries, I suppose. I will show you some videos in a second, and of what stargazing looked like. And during the next part of this video, well, it will be continued anyway from this. When I explained about the twirling, Twirling, I'll show you the videos of what twirling looks like, and you'll notice the difference between the stargazing and the twirling. It's unmistakable. So the trick is with stargazing, plenty of room, plenty of light, not overcrowded. If you haven't got the room to keep, if you have got the room for a big cage, and you can, I'll never ever keep a bird in a cage this size ever. It needs to be at least really 3 foot. If you can't keep them in that, you're going to have to let them out each day so they can get some exercise, because they're never going to exercise in a small cage less than 3 foot. It's just impossible. They can't do it. It's, they become cage bound, where eventually you let them out and they can't fly because their wings are so weak, and they do lose weight from that as well. So that's not good. Right, twirling. Twirling is completely different kettle of fish. Before I move on to that, I do want to show you a couple of videos, short videos with this one of what stargazing looks like. So you can watch these next couple of videos now. Right, now we're back. We'll get on to twirling. Now, twirling is a completely different subject altogether. Although the symptoms look similar to stargazing, they're not. If you look more carefully, you'll notice there's more when their heads move. It's usually they will twist it upside down to a point where their head is upside down, and they will constantly fall off the perch. It depends on how severe it is, because some of it's very, very severe to the point that they can't eat or drink. And I mean, you may need to hand feed them at that point, but you need to find out what exactly it is. Usually, from my experience with PMV, I'm getting ahead of myself. Usually with twirling is usually, from my experience, PMV, which is known as paramexivirus, and it's obviously viral. That's why it's a virus. So you have to keep it away from other birds straight away. You need to get it into not a small cage. You need a large cage, because paramexivirus you cannot keep it confined, because you can clean that cage out day in, day out, and that virus, because that bird will be shedding it constantly. So you need to get it out into an environment where it's not going to keep picking up all the time. Yes, that's why you need the biggest cage as possible. It's less work to clean a bigger cage than it is a smaller one. Anybody who's kept birds long enough will know that. So, and you'll think, well, how does that make sense? It just does. For anyone who keeps birds, will know that cleaning a small cage is actually more hard work than a bigger cage, because it's small, and then
all the poo and everything, all the waste food is all in one space because the cage is so small and it's constantly getting dirty. But you still need to keep it clean no matter what size anyway, and as much as possible really. Even more so when they have PMV. PMV, it can be passed from bird to bird through humans. That means by handling a bird, or its droppings or anything like that. Once it turns to dust, you can get it on your clothes, and then you go with your main flock and you're treating them. You may handle some of the birds or some of the food, etc., or whatever, anything in that cage. You'll probably carry it in. That's why I always recommend whenever you have a bird with PMV, keep it in another room and make sure if you have handled the bird, if you can, wash your hands thoroughly afterwards and before, so you don't bring any other viruses in. And if you can, just change your top and maybe your trousers, skirt, or whatever you're wearing. Just change it. Just quick change your clothes. It may seem excessive, but it's not. But I will explain before I move on with this. I want to explain a bit more about PMV. PMV will be usually with small birds. They will. It's debatable with some people. They will say it's a bit longer. Some will say it's less. Now, I found with pigeons, PMV is usually shed for about 8 weeks, and after that they don't shed it no more. And then basically they have the symptoms there still, but they usually start disappearing after they shed. So you've got a period where they have all the symptoms and they're shedding the virus basically through their droppings and urine, etc., and feather dust as well, I might add. All that time for the 8 weeks while they've got it, they're continuously shedding it and it's dropping everywhere in the dust. That's why you don't want to use hoovers around them. Use a damp cloth or anything like that to wipe it up. And when you finish the damp cloth, put it in bleach or Vericon S mixture to sterilise it, and then next time use it again. When they have this virus, after the 8 week period, they stop shedding the virus, and what will happen then is that they do have the symptoms, but you will notice afterwards that the symptoms subside, and eventually they just go back to normal. So, but they need to be in an open space to do that. If you keep them in a small cage, they're going to die. They're going to get worse, and it could be a lifelong thing where it's a permanent damage. Now, with finches, especially Gordians, I've seen this more in Gordians than any other bird. Other birds do get it, but mainly Gordians, they're prone to it. Or should I say, they're more vulnerable to it, I suppose. So if you do have Gordian that you suspect to have PMV or twirling, and you think it could be PMV, get it in an open space. And I will say that they do tend to shed it a bit longer. When I've done tests and samples, I found like signs that they were still shedding it for maybe 8, 9, maybe up to even 10 weeks, and it took a lot longer for them for the symptoms to subside. Now, most of the people that I know, probably 95% of the people that I know who've had birds with PMV twirling, those birds have died. There's very, very few that make it. That's because they don't know what to do, and they just assume it's this and assume it's that, and they keep it in a small cage with a light for a source of heat, and they're kept in the cage, and they put on all this different medicine, and they put on medicines that's going to make actually no difference to them whatsoever, and the bird end up dying. And a lot of the times they die is through starvation or thirst, because they're so severe, they get to a point where they have no control over their motor functions and they're rolling about. They can't get to eat and drink. So you may need to hand feed them. If they're that severe, you may need to hand feed them a little bit several times a day, rather than one big feed like 4 or 5 times a day. You need the smaller the better. And if you can manage to do that, a good perfect mixture. I have got a video on hand rearing mix if you want to go back on my other videos, and it will show you how to make the stuff if you need to. And then you can give them that formula and feed them through the day. And you'll have to do it every single day, but never feed them after, just before sundown. Don't bother feeding them. don't feed them at all, because at night time their crop needs to empty, or else they get bacteria build up in there, etc. And then they get sour crop and all sorts of problems, or crop impaction. With PMV, it's and Gordians, when there is the severe symptoms, make sure they're fed, make sure they're watered well, because water is the most important thing. You can always tell if their bird is dehydrated by pinching their skin on the abdomen. Pinch it. If it stays together, they're dehydrated. If the skin pings back, they're okay, it's fine, which is what you want. You want the skin to ping straight back. Right, if it's not PMV, it can be, not always PMV, just most of the time that I've come across, it's always been PMV. I mean, there's been cases where the bird has actually had shells from its seed stuck in its ear. I've had them before where they couldn't get the seed out, and it just drives them insane, and they roll around everywhere, and they're scratching and they just can't get it out. Another one I've had where they had something wrong with their eardrum. I don't know if it was burst. I remember there was some kind of infection in the ear. I've had them where they've had mites in the ear, a build up of mites, and it was like a scaly mite, and it was all over their faces, and eventually it got into their ear, and that was driving them nuts. And the only way I got rid of that was with moxidectin, once a month, every single month, until it had cleared. And after a few months, after about 3-4 months, it did clear. So that was all good. And the bird made a full recovery. And then I gave the bird back to who it belonged to. And I believe it's still alive today. Anyway, other things, it can be neurological problems with the bird. It could be head trauma where they've flown into something, maybe a night fright where someone's flashed lights through the curtain, or lightning, and it shocked them while they were sleeping, and it's frightened them, and then they've flown into something. That's very common with Gordians. It's usually from the head up. That's what the problem usually is. It could be brain damage. I mean, that's looking at more severe things, when you're looking at things like brain tumours, cancers, or something like that. I mean, I'm not saying it is, I'm saying it's the very possibility, it's something to consider. So I do want to show you some short videos right now of what it looks like with a bird with PMV, or suspected PMV, and what videos, what they look like when they have twirling, and you will see the difference between twirling and stargazing. Check this video out and the one after. Maybe there's a couple more. as you can see, the the videos I showed you earlier compared to the videos you're seeing now, or the ones you've just seen, completely different. And you'll notice with the first one, the first set of videos, where the birds are just tilting their head backwards and forwards. There's none of this out of control, falling off the perches forward and rolling their head around. With the one you just what the videos you just watched a moment ago, where the head is actually twisting around and the birds are actually having no control, little or no control over themselves at all. And as you can see, that one is a physical sort of problem and one is more of a mental sort of problem. Now the mental one is the stargazing. That's a mental problem where like that can be fixed by just giving them space and just making the environment nice for them, lower the perches, and give them more perches as well because they do like perches. So there's plenty of flight, plenty of things to do, and with twirling, you can see that it's more something underlining is going on there. So yeah, I did want to mention before because I'm going to pretty much. Oh, but before I do move on, actually, I better say if it doesn't do any harm if you do have a bird who is stargazing and you watch the videos and you think my bird isn't stargazing, sorry, it's twirling because I can tell by the videos. Now, if you haven't got the money to go to, should I say, if you can't afford a mortgage to go to a vet, I always say that because they're so expensive. If you don't have the money to go there, or you don't have a vet in your area, and you suspect that your bird does have or is twirling, and you're not sure it's because PMV is not really treatable. There are no known cures for PMV as yet. It's very similar to Newcastle's disease, but it's not Newcastle's disease. Newcastle's disease, I will go into that on another video. It could be Newcastle's disease which causes it, but it's not always the case. Newcastle's disease is, I think, is quite nasty. Normally, when you get that, the bird does have to be put to sleep because that will spread like wildfire. Mind you, twirling can as well. I've seen before where one bird in a cage was introduced, had very mild signs of twirling, and over a period of weeks, the progression got seriously worse. And all of a sudden, all the other birds started doing it. So, and it was literally a very short space of time. I wasn't here; that was somewhere else that had them. Someone said to me, "I brought one home. It was a bit sus at first, and now all the other ones are doing it." So that shows you how not just there's about 8 or 9 in there. Apparently, they're all doing it now. So that's another story. But PMV at the moment, there's no known cure. The only cure that I can think of that works, plenty of space, keep it clean. Make sure the bird is kept warm and make sure it's fed and watered constantly all through the day. If you've got the time to do that, your bird will probably make a good recovery in time. If not, it's going to look very doubtful. And the trick is to make sure the bird is getting plenty of food and water. If you don't know if it's getting water, measure on your little drinker, get your drinker, put a little marker along it, put your water in, and then at the end of the day, you can see how much it's drunk. How much it usually drink a good few mil a day. Make sure it has access to a bath, but very shallow water. You don't want any more than a centimetre deep because if it's that bad, it may drown, and you don't want to drown the bird. So, and don't leave the bath in there unattended. Put it in there. If it's not having a bath in the first 15-20 minutes, take it out. Just get anything away that the bird can harm itself. If it wants to have a bath, if it's severe, don't bother putting a bath in. There's no point. If it's an infection, like I was going to say just now, if it is an infection, it doesn't hurt to put the bird on some kind of antibiotic. I know people stick their noses up to it, but if the bird doesn't have a problem, and if it's something that an antibiotic isn't going to cure, the antibiotic will not harm the bird anyway. It will either work or it won't work. And if you have to give it to them at least 10 days, and if there's no improvement after 10 days, then you know it's not an infection. It's not. It's going to be something like PMV. That's what I would have done if I was not sure if it's PMV and I had no access to a vet or I couldn't afford to see a vet. The first thing I would do is I would probably put the bird on Baytril. It's a standard sort of medication. It's more for respiratory problems, but it does deal with other things as well. There are other things that you can give them. There are other medications that you can give them, but it depends on what it is. Like doxycycline and stuff like that. But again, that's just mainly for upper respiratory problems. But they're handy to try. I mean, I'm not going to say that they work, but a lot of the times they do. If it's a bacterial problem or infection. Another thing you might want to check is the ears. Check around the ears, the beak, all the head. Make sure you check the skin as well. Make sure the skin of the bird doesn't look like it's full of mites or something like that, or make sure there's no cysts coming up in the ears, like pox or something like that. Because pox will send them crazy as well. I mean, especially if they've got it up around their eyes and they'll be scratching like mad, and sometimes they'll fall over themselves if it's like really irritating them. So you want to give them look very, very closely. Anyway, I'm going to end this video. I'm going to add some videos. Sorry, I'm going to add some photos which have been submitted by people in the Gordian Finch group and the Finch Keeper. So I'm going to add some photos to the gallery at the end of this video. And before I go, I do want to let you know that the next video that I'm making is on how to make a hospital cage. Now, the hospital cage that I am making or building, whatever you like, it's programmable. It's very cheap to build. The components are very easy to get, very cheap. It consists of a heating wire, a digital control box, and which has an element in there which is stops it from going over a certain temperature, and a simple little fan. And then it's going to be so that mine's going to be a little bit modified so that it can run off 12 volts and it'll have a battery pack in there. So if I need to keep the bird in the cage and keep it home, I can plug it in and run it off the mains as 12 volts through a transformer, and then it will keep the bird warm. And then I can set the temperature, say 80 degrees or 85 degrees, and it will stay at that temperature all throughout with the fan very slowly distributing the heat constantly around the bird. And if I want it hotter, I can just program it up, program it down. I've already got I've got everything here except one thing. I'm just waiting for the heating element at the moment. The heating element is very cheap. There is, however, just one component I'm waiting for, so that's the reason I haven't really started the video. The video will be probably quite interesting. I'll show you step by step how to build it, what you will need. I mean, the little programmable unit is literally £5. It's probably something like $7 or $8 or something if you're in America, maybe more, probably cheaper actually over there. The heating element, I bought, I think it was 20 meters of it, and that was something like £3, I think it was, £4, no, £5 again. So you're looking at 10, £15 build it, I suppose. That's other than the cage, if providing you've already got the cage. The cage isn't really that hard to build anyway. You can use probably any kind of box, I suppose. But I'm building mine, so it's going to be for a long period of time, so I can use it forever. So, and if I need to go to the vet, all I have to do is unplug the power source, take it out from the back of the from the hospital cage itself, and then it will have battery packs in there, so it will be powered by battery, so it will be constantly warm. So I'm travelling up, because I walk, I don't drive at the moment, so if I ever need to go to the vet, I can carry it and it's going to be warm all the time. So I have a light in there, it has everything. But that'll be for another video anyway. So I'm going to end this video now, and I hope you enjoy the photo gallery at the end. And thanks for watching, and until the next video.
I'm just sitting here. I got time. It's clear to see from up here. The world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free. Sometimes in